of the most admirable chasers you could possibly wish to see.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Racehour podcast, brought to you with our friends at Gambling.com. It's myself, Dean Ryan, of course, and Dermot Nolan is here.
Hello, Dino. How are you, buddy?
Very well, Dermot. Good to have you on again this week. We've been busy away on the Racehour for the first few weeks since Salvo. Well, I guess it's nearly 2 months now of the National Hunt season proper. It's about time we brought on an expert. I think we've had a few, I would say charlatans on so far, Dermo. I think that would be fair. And we brought along Donn McClean. Donn, it's great to have you back on the Racehour.
That was going, dude.
I
good.
wasn't sure myself.
Good. Good to be back. Yeah, no, good. Everyone good? You all good?
Really well. I mean, I think I was saying just off air before we came on that we normally get Donn on to do the opening season salvos, and we have a little look at the picture of the National Hunt season ahead. We've had plenty of action already, of course. So on this pod, we're gonna try and do it a slightly in reverse. Of course, we had Fairyhouse at the weekend, the bar one meeting there. We saw a few bubbles popped over the last few weeks in the National Hunt season, and there's plenty to talk about. So why don't we get stuck in? I mean, Fairyhouse this weekend, Donn, I might come to you first. I don't know if you were track side, of course, but of course you've seen all the action. A good few bubbles bears this weekend. Ballyburn, one of the most fascinating ones. I would put that one up there as a shock to the Twitterati, at least on National Hunt Racing. I was shocked. Everyone talking about this being one of the second comings. What did you think?
Yeah, look, an awful lot going on at the weekend. Yeah, I was there on Sunday, not on Saturday. And yeah, look, Firefox was very good, and there were so many interesting parts of the weekend, and we can flit around a bit. But I thought at the end of the weekend, after Gordon Elliott had the 1-2 in the Royal Bond Hurdle, Gary asked him who was his best novice, and he said Firefox, which to me was significant.
Yeah.
So, and look, Firefox was very good beating Ballyburn. The two of them pulled well clear. I wouldn't give up on Ballyburn yet, no more than I'd give up on Ante-Post. I thought he ran well in defeat. His first step out of novice company and taking on a horse like Ante-Post, who's a top class horse, third in the Stairs Hurdle, could have done better with a wee bit more luck. And we know how good he is fresh. It was his 8th run off a break of 50 days or more, and his 8th win, which was quite an incredible stat. And he goes well at Fairyhouse as well. It was his 5th run at Fairyhouse, his 4th win, and his only defeat, he was 2nd. So he was taking on a very potent force in Ante-Post on his first run of the season, his first run out of novice company. I'm sure it was a bit of a culture shock to him. And even so, he travelled best of all into the home straight. So I know they pushed him out in the Champion Hurdle Market, which you can understand. Of course, they had to, but I wouldn't give up on Ante-Post. And Ante-Post, yeah, look, he was very, very good. And interesting, Gordon Elliott saying they're going to go straight to Cheltenham with him now, which I don't know if that's set in stone. Like we know he goes well fresh, but he could run in the Christmas hurdle at Leopardstown and still be very fresh. He'd still have 2.5 months after that to be before Cheltenham, so he can still go to Cheltenham. Like, I think going from Christmas to Cheltenham, that's a fresh horse. So I don't think he needs to stay off until then. Plus, he's probably at his best on soft ground, so it would be good to see him through soft ground through the winter. That said, he's not your normal Stairs Hurdle kind of Barracuda, big bucks, English streamer, dig down a deep dark stair. He's a pacey horse. He's probably a 2.5 miler who gets 3 miles more than the other way around. So yeah, I think an awful lot to like about him. I thought Nürburgring was good and winning the Grade 3 Juvenile Hurdle as well. He's kind of gone a wee bit under the radar. His time was good as well, and the front to him, and he and Calaconte, I thought she ran well as well. They pulled well clear. So yeah, there was, and then the handicaps as well. There was so much to digest at Fairyhouse over the weekend.
You sound like a man that might have tipped Ante-Post on Donn McClean Racing, Donn.
That happens. That happens to be the case, but even so, like, look. Normally, the case in these instances is I haven't backed him, and then you look back and you go, "Oh yeah, Jesus, there it is." So yeah, no,
Jack Kennedy was brilliant, wasn't he? Jack Kennedy, I thought, he just kept Paul Townend out of his comfort zone the whole way around the race. And it just meant that Ante-Post was doing that little bit more than he probably wanted to be doing in a race like that. I just thought Jack Kennedy, he's a brilliant jockey. We all knew it. He's ice in his veins, but he's particularly just riding out of his skin at the moment. He really is.
It just shows you, Dermot, like if Jack Kennedy hadn't won the race, we wouldn't have got the insight into his mind that we got. And look, Jack Kennedy he's a man of few words, as you
He
say.
was very
He's
emotive afterwards, Don, wasn't he? He was
no, he
very.
was like,
Wasn't like him.
no, but like he's a brilliant rider, as is Paul Townend. But like just telling us that he just wanted Empire Pass to keep on doing. He said he saw that he was doing more than Paul wanted him to do, so he wanted to keep him up and keep on doing that. So if he got beaten, people would be going, what was he doing up on the outside of Empire Pass and pushing him forward like he's a staying horse? But and that happens more often than not. It doesn't work out. You don't win. But it for me, it was fascinating to see or to hear what's going on in the mind of a top class jockey through a race. And they're thinking, we often hear people, he gave him a terrible ride. He did this. He should have done that. But we don't know what the jockey is doing. And they're obviously pretty good at what they do. So I thought it was a fascinating insight.
Fair enough. There was a couple of I referenced it as like a meeting of a few shocks. Let's be clear about it. In that Drimore, you mentioned the Royal Bond on, maybe not the strongest of renewals that we've seen in the past. So one by good horse though, Baron Glory. You had Iron Maximus, who's able to still go in the Drimore Novice, of course, because of the calendar year that it's in. That was an odd scene, wasn't it?
I actually got a text from a fellow that I haven't had a text from him quite a while going, how is Iron Maximus allowed running the chase? Which was a fair question. And, it's kind of like you're trying to bring new people into racing, and there's a novice or an Irish Grand National winner running a novice chase. I think that needs to be explained more. And of course, it's a wind after February. It's a novice until Latin's Grace Hurdle weekend. Now, the rule wasn't. It was there to, I guess, to encourage trainers and owners to allow horses running chases or hurdles towards the end of the season, and then retain at least half their novice status for half the season ahead. But Iron Maximus, according to the rule, he was obviously entitled to run in it. He was a maiden when he won the Irish National. So and he was a 158 rated horse going into the race. So he was entitled to run a big race in it, for all that it was over a trip that was probably short of his best. So I think he deserves much credit for that. And the Royal Bond, I probably agree with that it wasn't the strongest renewal. I don't think we have enough evidence yet. Like last year's renewal, I remember at the time, bar the winner, maybe Marine Nationale, we kind of went, it probably wasn't a great Royal Bond. The 4 subsequent Grade 1 winners came out of it. So, I think it's probably potentially a better race than it's generally getting the recognition for at the minute. Like Untubber, he could be a very good horse, maybe over further. He probably didn't have the run of the race because he had to make his running. He's a horse he's bred for stamina. He's going to get further. He's probably a staying chaser in waiting. So to run as well as he did in a Royal Bond hurdle was probably a big run. And King of Kingsfield, I know he was beaten in his first 2 runs, but he was beaten by Redstone in his first run. And Redstone, I know he was beaten there the other day, but that wasn't his running. I think he's potentially still a good horse, Gavin Cromwell's horse. And then he was beaten last time by Henry de Bromhead's horse, who could have run in the Royal Bond instead of Untubber. The Rob Cork connection, same connection. And King of Kingsfield, Jordan Gainford rode impatiently in his first 2 hurdle races. He was ridden forward, and I think the patient tactic suited him well. He was still in front early enough. He hit the front at the second last, and the Gordon saying afterwards that Jordan was kind of kicking himself for not delaying his run for a wee bit longer. Like he finished 3rd behind a Dream to Share in the champion bumper at Punchestown. So he's a very good horse, and I think King of Kingsfield is more to come from him. I think maybe ridden even more patiently and delivered a wee bit later. Maybe.
All right, I won't be writing off the race just yet. You made the point about what came out of it last year, and there's always plenty of festival winners come out of this meeting demo. It's kind of at the right time of the year, pre-Christmas. You want to go target and stuff, and Fairyhouse doesn't disappoint. It's great they got it on in the end, wasn't it?
Oh, huge! Yeah, God, of course, absolutely huge. Yeah, look, and that it's kind of the way, obviously, because the Novice Chasers, I think this season has been the particular division that that's maybe crystallizing the most. We still have a good few novice hurdlers who haven't come out yet, and like it's strange the way the trainers have kind of changed their tact. I mean, the Drinmore wasn't the main novice chase at the weekend. It was definitely that race, Corbett's Cross, beating Three Card Bragg,
and we're going to come on to that for sure when we discuss
Monty Star. So that was the serious race as well, and it's a serious meeting, but weirdly, the 2 Grade 1s aren't the races that probably brought out the best horses. As Don said, you Firefox beating Ballyburn in the novice hurdle, and in the beginner's chase, you those 4. They're probably the 4 Grade 1 novice chasers. So the one thing, sorry, Dean, just because you skipped over, let's be clear, but I think maybe, the 3 runs this season, that was his 3rd run. That might have caught him out. And also, Gavin Cromwell's didn't run great all weekend as
Okay.
well. So like a few of his horses can be forgiven. Encanto Bruno, Redstone, him. There could just have been something small. I don't know. I'm not a trainer, but I would be forgiving maybe a few of those runs.
That's fair. That's totally fair. Okay. Look, we can't gloss over what happened. Obviously, of course, at Newbury. Donn, did you fancy one in the Coral in the old Hennessy?
I did.
Was it That's All Right, Gino?
It wasn't That's All Right, Gino. No, it wasn't That's All Right, Gino.
What did you make of the race?
I backed Stolen Silver in the race. I just thought he'd come on for. I thought he was so impressive with Chepstow, but yeah, he just probably wasn't good enough. I thought that the top three, easy to name the top three in the race and say their horses to follow, but I thought they were good for different reasons. Like That's All Right, Gino. He was held up at the back by Gavin Sheehan, and like it was his first run over the trip, so you can understand that they're going to ride him conservatively. I thought Gavin Sheehan was very good on him. He rode him very patiently, delivering him at the right time. But it wasn't a great pace. His finishing speed was fast. So I thought he did well to come from as far back as he did and win the race. Malheur Mission was probably a bit more obvious, even though he didn't win it. He travelled so well. He traded odds on in running, looked a likely winner. And sorry, and That's All Right, that was his first run over the trip as well. So that, he's still unexposed over staying trips. Malheur Mission, he's obviously proven over staying trips. He might have won the National Hunt Chase last season had he not come down. And he travelled so well through his race after a good prep run at Carlisle. He looked a likely winner. He came home without his two front shoes as well. So I think he can be marked up a fair bit on that. Like he could be a kind of a national horse. And some of the nationals, maybe even the entry national, he's 7 Rising 8. Excuse me, and Monday Genius. He like John Junior's interview on Racing TV with Lydia, I think it was before the race. He was saying that he was worried about the ground, and that was a legitimate concern because a lot of his good form was on softer ground. So I think Monbeg Genius on softer ground. I see his favourite now for the Welsh Nationals. So he obviously hasn't gone under the radar, and obviously the form of his ultimate chase run when he finished third behind Korak Rambler and Faster Slow, that's just looking better and better as time is going on. So I thought the three, yeah, I think that there could be more to come from all three, the first three.
Fair. Demo, what did you think of the old Hennessy, the Coral Gold Cup the weekend?
Yeah, I heard the connections are kind of moving towards a Gold Cup, but mark 155, that would scream an Intrigue National to me, just the way he travelled through the race, and he jumped so well. I thought Ben Harvey actually gave him a great ride. Gavin Sheehan afterwards, he was fascinating as well. Just he said the horse was going as quick as he could. He didn't want to rush him. I thought that took serious mettle, especially because everyone always talks about the Hennessy. You want to be mid-div plus.
Definitely up top is the spot to be. All right. I mean,
it took
really
serious
looked like he arrived in the
did.
race 3 or 4 out.
And he just kind of, it was a brilliant ride. He's a jockey in absolutely great form as well. It was a brilliant meeting actually, Newbury as well, Dean, because again, we'll move on to Hermes Allen, but even the Henderson Novice Hurdler as well looked really, really good. Jericho the Bomb thing, he looked absolutely fantastic.
The Weaponay, as they're calling it now.
Yeah, sorry, the Weaponay, yeah. And he looked brilliant. And then another note as well, as we're kind of talking about jockeys as well, just kind of watching him the last 2 weeks, the much maligned Nico de Boinville, I think is riding as well as he ever has at the moment. Handicaps and everything else. He lifted one home in a handicap hurdle on Friday. He's just a jockey in absolutely serious form, and again, he definitely gets the ammo. There's no questioning that, but he really is. He's firing them home as well,
Fair play. Good shout out for him. Okay, what we're going to do for the next part of today's race hour is we're going to take a look at some of the novice chasers that have been around the place. I think we might start with some of the staying novice chasers. And there's a couple I definitely want to talk to Donn about, and I did purposely gloss over that first race on Fairyhouse on Saturday, which was the beginners chase there. Corbett's Cross 3-card brag, Monty Star, who Dem I know you were a big fan of anyway, but one of the most fascinating races of the weekend. A smart performance from the winner and admirable stuff in behind. We could have 3 or 4 horses there that are going places. Just where?
Yeah. It was a hell of a race, wasn't it? A hell of a beginner's chase even beforehand. It looked like it was going to be. And this is a race that's been won by Martello Tower in the past. Monkfish won it as well. Manella Cruna won it last year. So it is a race that it's worth monitoring. And again, the first 4 home were very good. Corbett's Cross, like he had the benefit of a run. So he was a bit disappointing behind Grange Clare West at Naas, but he put that all behind him. And look, we know he's very good from last year. I don't know, like, is he an absolute staying horse? Like, would he have won the Albert Bartlett Hurdle last year if he hadn't run out? I'm not sure that he would have. I think he could be kind of this type of trip could be his optimum. Whereas Three Card Bragg, I think he's the opposite. I think he can go out and trip. And Monty Star likewise. I thought Monty Star was very good. Like it's his first run back since he was pulled up in the Albert Bartlett Hurdle, and he's a horse who will almost certainly be better over further. This is a trip that was shy of his best. Like he won that Grade 3 Novices Hurdle at Clonmel last year. That actually he beat a stable companion Hidden Valley Lake in the race, and that's a race that has been a good pointer, a good springboard for staying novice hurdlers. I think that was the race in which Allaho beat Manila Indo coming back. So I think Monty Star, like coming from Henry de Bromhead's yard, it's probably he's going to be a better chaser than hurdler. I think he'll probably benefit from this experience as well, from this run. And he was a wee bit short of room late on. He just probably didn't have the pace to retain the gap for himself. But I think with a run under his belt, stepped up and trip, and maybe even on softer ground. Yeah, I think Monty's pass. If I had to take one from the race with a view to the degree to which he might be underrated going forward, I think it could be Monty Star.
Music to your ears, Dermo, I reckon.
Yeah, I put him up in the independent at 50 to 1. Start of the season. I love what he did in Clonmel. Again, everything that kind of Donn said there. I thought it was a very good race. The one thing is that if Corvus Cross does stay, he has that turn of pace as well, which will be an issue for a lot of these, because I just thought he was brilliant. I thought Mark Walsh rode him brilliantly, but it just is the way the Bromhead gets him jumping fences is just brilliant. And Monty Star, he just lacked that finishing kick over that speed, but he could be one arguably that could end up going into the festival at still at decent odds, because, you know, if he goes to a flow gas next or something like that, he's still going to be over maybe the wrong trip, and you'll see the best of him over 3 miles. You can't forget that, like, Vanilla Indo, his novice chase campaign, I think it was only he went up against Lorena and was beaten that season before going on. Henry de Bromhead tends to peak them towards the end of season target. This lad won't be any different. I just love the way he jumped, love the way he travelled. Three Card Bragg was excellent. Nick Rocket for me wouldn't surprise me, and I heard him mentioned on the Up in the Ante show as well that he could be one, you know, that he could see Patrick Mullins on in the 3 mile sixer. It was just a brilliant race, Dean, and it's just funny that, you know, any one of them four probably would have won that Trinmore, I'd say.
Yeah, it's interesting that perhaps that was stronger than the Trinmore, and just the different stages of the career. I mean, there was a couple of fences omitted, wasn't there? I mean, that wouldn't have helped Three Card Bragg, perhaps. Could the result have been different?
It could, but Monty Star, you know, he was jumping them brilliantly as well. There was a few of them really that mightn't have helped. I thought Fairyhouse were admirable in trying to move the fences to try and get as many fence jumps as possible. Yeah,
they've got so much space there. They had to go.
Yeah. I saw someone on Twitter mentioning that, and there was a reply saying they'd have to take the car park out and post last to try and do that. You know, so it's not an option for quite a few race courses. But yeah, look, it was. They'll all improve, but I do think Monty Star, when he gets up to 3 miles plus, will be one. He just screamed to me as a Gold Cup horse of the future, perhaps, you know, that the 3 mile 2, just a massive horse. He's huge. And yeah, Dean, I was quite enthused. I think there's still 40s out there about him for the RSA, for the Brown Advisory, and that does look a decent price.
You know, like I said to you last week, Dennis, something has to finish second back to file. So that's totally fine. Donn, you were going to jump in there, I think.
No, just on the fence of Fairyhouse, like fair play to Peter Rowe and his team. It's great. Like so there are 4 fences now on the side of the track. Like we're used to the Irish national start. You've got 3 fences, and then you turn and you jump the fence at Ballyhack, which comes out quite quickly. They've moved that fence around, and I thought the 4 fences down the side of the track worked really well. And I was thinking, sure, they could just leave them there and put the fence in at Ballyhack as well, make it a real test. But you know, there's definitely
kind of like Galway, wasn't it? You know, the tree in the back in Galway. It was kind of like, you know, it was just a great spectacle to watch them jump before.
I was actually thinking of the 5 in the back straight at Warwick. You line up in a straight line, and it's the same thing. You know, it's our Paul Carberry. Remember Paul Carberry talking about the fences at Leopardstown. I think there's 6 in the back straight. You line up at the top of the back straight. I think I was asking him, would he ever go flat racing? And he's like, "Are you joking me? You line up at the back of the back straight at Leopardstown. You see those 6 fences in front of you, and there's no better feeling." So
Yeah.
no, it was a really good sight, and yeah, as you said, great initiative by Fairyhouse to make the change.
Slightly sideways question for you, Don. I mean, Fairyhouse in terms of form going towards festival, we're obviously a Cheltenham centred podcast on here plenty of the time. It always ranks very high for me out of pretty much all the Irish courses, Fairyhouse, in terms of the test that it provides. I know it's going the other way, but that doesn't seem to be a barrier.
No, it's not a barrier going the other way. It's more the quality of the racing, isn't it? The quality of the tests that it is. Interesting. Matt Toombs had a stat on the Drinmore, which kind of goes against it, which was a bizarre stat, like a stat that would really surprised me, and I have to go and check it out to make sure that it was real, or more to find out why or how close it was going. The 18 winners of the Drinmore, none of them have won at the festival.
What?
Not one Drinmore winner has won at the Cheltenham Festival as a novice that year. So there are a couple of anomalies.
Same season, right? Yeah, it has to be.
Same season, right? Yeah, so Doran's Pride, he won the Drinmore. He ran the Gold Cup. He actually finished third behind Mr. Mulligan. And while N fell when he was favourite for the Turners, odds-on shot.
Cossack in the Ryanair, maybe?
John Cossack fell.
He fell in the
He fell.
He fell in the old JLT. He fell,
Mighty Potter went close last year. He was odds-on. He didn't win it. So no Drinmore winner has won as a novice at Cheltenham, which to me was bananas.
Yeah, man.
That is crazy. Yeah, that is pretty crazy. All right, well, it doesn't blow the stat. It doesn't blow the feeling I have.
Doesn't know the other races are stronger. And even beaten horses in the Drinmore, they don't have a bad record either. So it's just an anomaly that I'm sure will fix itself soon. Maybe this year.
Maybe. I am Maximus will have the job of going to find something at Cheltenham Festival this time around to break that. Let's talk about a few of the other ones that have come out. I know you're a keen follower of Favre de Champ, Don.
No, absolutely. Like, I thought that, like, he was a good staying novice hurdler last season. He won the Doran's Pride novice hurdle at Limerick, and it's a 2 mile 7 for novices at Christmas time on soft ground. So it takes real stamina to win that. He beat Let's Be Clear about it than that. And then this year he was beaten by Affordale Fury in that beginner's chase at Galway, and that's a race that has a phenomenal record in terms of producing future winners. I think Donn Cossack won that as well. Last Stone won it. Jesse's Dream won it. China Rock won it. It's produced an awful lot of very good winners going forward. And he and Affordale Fury had a good old tussle. He was in front from early, and what I liked about his performance that day on his season debut was the way that he battled on after Affordale Fury had beaten him, had gone past him. He was only beaten a length and a half in the end or so, and the pair of them pulled clear. And I thought in the Florida Pearl Chase actually. I don't know. You probably discussed this earlier. It was 3 miles this year as opposed to 2 miles 6 or 2 miles 6.5 before. So it was a more of a stamina test than it normally is. Of course, the headlines were garnered by Flooring Porter, who seemed to be jumping straight enough, and then Churchstone Warrior, having unseated his rider at the second fence, came up on his outside, and he didn't really impede him or cut across him, but he was just a distraction. And as we know, Flooring Porter doesn't need much of an excuse. So he got all the attention from the race. But I thought Favre de Champ was very good. His jumping was so good. He even with Flooring Porter going to his left, he had the race in the bag from a little way out. He kept on. He beat Sander Clegane by 14 lengths, which to me was a massive performance. And I know it's 3 miles and he's down. He's got the 2 miles 7 novice hurdle race in his CV. But so he's all stamina. But I think wherever he goes, obviously when Stone has at a premium, maybe the National Hunt Chase, maybe that's the race for him in time. But I think he's a horse that, I'm not sure if he'll be underrated, but there's a chance that he will, because he just might not have got the accolade that he should have got for winning that.
Yeah, fair. I mean, he's kind of sharing favouritism in the early markets for that National Hunt Chase, the 3 mile 6. You mentioned Sandor Clegane. I know, Dermo, you're a fan of this. I think Paul Nolan's saying that they might have a few little issues to sort out before we see Sandor Clegane again. Flooring Porter has to be reckoned with when it turns up at Cheltenham for whatever it turns up at. You're just taking your... you want a little bit of risk liability in the price, don't you, Don?
I thought he ran really well. I think he's going left-handed again. Like he hadn't been right-handed in a long time, and you can understand why they tried it. And they were unlucky because if he hadn't had the loose horse, we don't know how he would have done. He might have been a wee bit to his left, maybe not as violently as he was, but you know, that said, we do know that the more a race goes on, the more he tends to do it. So we don't know how he would have done without the loose horse. Um, he doesn't need to go right-handed again now for a while, so he can go left-handed now at Leopardstown, and then on to Cheltenham, and then he can go to Aintree instead of Punchestown or Fairyhouse. So he doesn't need to go left-handed again this season, and I'd be surprised if he did. And I'd also be surprised if he didn't continue down chasing. I don't know if there's any talk about him not continuing chasing and going back early. I don't think there's any need to do that because he jumps well and going back like he was so good at Cheltenham on his first chase. So yeah, I wouldn't lose faith in Florian Fortin now back on left-handed.
That's fair. That's fair. Damn, any of the other Irish ones you wanted to pick out? I'm a massive fan of Factor File. Who obviously got his colours lowered on his first crack over fences by American Mike. You're not keen, but you know how keen I am.
Yeah, the fact that you're keen might make me unkeen, maybe, Dean. But
I know
I was quite impressed with American Mike that day. I know he
had to be, yeah.
He has his detractors because of his past, but horses can just kind of kick on for fences. That was a proper tussle they had. It's just very the champion bumper form. You'd have to have a small few question marks about it, and unfortunately, the winner, we won't see him now until the new year. Fact, the file is just very interesting with that profile going straight over fences. Willies have, a lot of them have needed the run as well, a few of them have needed the run. So that, he could improve an awful lot for that. It's just a very deep, the staying chasers division, Dean, especially like overall, that's the division that's really starting to kind of cement. People have their kind of supporters, and there's so many there that we've just rattled.
I may not have got to the best one, Demo. Me and you are not massive fans of Gaelic Warrior, but could that be the best of them all?
He could, but I'd imagine he'd end up in the intermediate trip, you'd think. Couldn't imagine him over 3 miles just yet over fences. He will be a stayer, obviously. He is a stayer. Sorry, he won 3 miles at the Punchestown Festival, obviously. But yeah, like, as far as the season goes, he'll win plenty. I'd still be keen enough to take him on. I mean, look, like we can't be sleeping on Paul Nicholls either, as in,
didn't get to the UK yet. I mean, there's a few.
Yeah, Hermes Allen, I thought he was brilliant on Friday. Really good. He took a while to warm up. There's the touch, as Stephen Cass did last week, there is the touch of the stage stars about him. And Paul Nicholls, there's a reason why he kind of hums and has about his horses. He didn't really want to run Brave Man's Game at Cheltenham. He didn't want to run. He doesn't tend to want to go to Cheltenham now with his novice hurdlers and be battered there. Stage stars improved a ton. Hermes Allen, he just took a small while to warm up, and then as it went on, that was a grade 2 he started off in, and I thought the last few fences there was only one horse going, it was him. I thought his jumping at the end was electric. I just wouldn't be sleeping on Paul Nicholls. Him, Nappers Hill, Stay Away Faye was probably a little bit cumbersome, but still he'll only improve as the season goes on. Paul Nicholls has 3 right ones there, because Nappers Hill is a horse that I was happy to take on that day. I took him on with the Irish horse who travelled over, and his jumping was absolutely electric as well. So the intermediate trip is very interesting because we maybe haven't seen an awful lot of them, same as the 2 mile division as well. We'll probably group them together for now because we don't really know who's where. Sure. We haven't seen Marine National yet, but just overall, the Irish, I think the staying chasers in the UK may struggle to land a blow there. I think there's an awful, we've rattled through an awful lot of, even Sander Gaglain, he has his excuses. I think Paul Nolan's form isn't quite where it should be. But the intermediate trip, Gaelic Warrior is very good, but if I was backing for returners, I'd be worried about him going left-handed, particularly at Cheltenham. He didn't get the job done in a Fred Winter. He, last season he was third in that Ballymore, and now all the talk about him as if he's, he produced the Cato performance. It was a very, very good performance, but you'd be thinking the horses behind it, maybe handicaps on their mind. So at the moment, Dean, and it's very un-Irish of me to say so, if I was going to my head looking at that market now and I had to pick one for the turners and they were both going, I'd be going towards Hermes Allen here. I was really, really impressed with him on Friday.
Fair enough. You mentioned Stay Away Bay. I thought looked in trouble when we saw it last day, and then came through with a rare old rattle.
And then kind of won snug at the end, nearly. Yeah. Same thing as Corbett's Cross, nearly. Look, just kind of one further than the actual distance. Or sorry,
I'm sure they're still learning, aren't they? There's plenty in there. Obviously, you've got Festival form there. Sorry, Don. I mentioned Gaelic Warrior there, and came to it last. Like it's going to be a stayer. Just how until they unleash.
Yeah, it depends how well he decides to juggle it. That's it's very difficult with Gaelic Warrior because he's got so many options. Like if you backed him for the Brown Advisory, you'd be a bit scared when he wanted to talking about he has the pace for 2 miles, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You don't want to hear that type of talk. But no, he was so good. And I know he was going right-handed, and that would be a worry because he was very out to his right in the Fred Winter. And I thought Brazil did well to win the Fred Winter, given that he was impeded as badly as he was, especially going past the stands first time by him. And then the Ballymore, he was a bit out to his right. Wasn't ideal. He was a little bit out to his right. And then at Fairyhouse over fences, you kind of thought that he was going. There was one fence, it was down the back straight where he literally clipped the corner of it on his way to his right. So it's hard to tell sometimes on a right-handed track to what extent a horse is going to his right, because you tend to want them to do that. But yeah, like Cheltenham, as we know, and a tendency to go right over hurdles, that can be accentuated when they go over fences. So until you see him going left-handed, we don't know. But he's got such an engine. Like he was a fence clear halfway down the back straight last time. And they were on, I know what you're saying, Dermot, but they were high 130, low 140 rated horses. They weren't bad horses.
I love the horse. I'm a big fan, Don, of the Cromwell horse, the McManus horse. I can't believe I know the way you're thinking. I'm a big fan of his. Yeah, big fan of his.
Yeah. No, it was a serious performance, I thought, and just trying to see where he goes next. But he's got so many options. I don't think you could back him for any race at Cheltenham at the minute until you A, knew where he was going, and we won't know that until declarations, or B, could back non-runner, no bet.
100%. And the bookies don't know, obviously, and probably connections don't know. Willie hasn't decided. Who knows what they're going to do? Vying for favouritism in the Brown Advisory and a turn is so good luck. Okay. Don, you didn't opine on any of the English ones, but Stay Away Faye, Hermes Allen, anyone else?
I agree with Dermot on Hermes Allen. Like I wasn't a huge Hermes Allen fan. I was against him all the way, and you kind of, whenever he got beaten in the Ballymore, you kind of went, well, I surprise, and then he went to Aintree and ran a wee bit better behind Irish Point, but still not great. So I was against him as well on Saturday, and no, he was very, very good. His jumping was good for a debutant, and yeah, like as Dermot said, he got stronger as the race went on. It was 2.5 miles, and he's a horse who, like when he won the shallow hurdle last season, I kind of thought he was a stair, which is why I was against him in the Ballymore, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did step out and trip even over fences now. But no, it's a good point that Dermot makes as well about Cheltenham. Like Paul Nicholls, even if he does end up running at Cheltenham, you're going to have a few scary moments along the way, because he's going to say stuff like, we might just skip Cheltenham and go to Aintree. But no, he's a really talented horse, and he's definitely better than I gave him credit for last season, and he could be a really exciting chaser. And as I'm making a lot of what Dermot said, but Stage Star was similar. He had a kind of a hurdling career that petered out, and then he was very good last season, won the Turners, and he's very good again in winning. And now he's obviously definitely up there among the top 2.5 mile chasers.
Fair enough. It's not the time to solve all of these novice chase puzzles just yet, but one that maybe stands out from amongst the rest. I'll ask you first.
Well, look, I kind of nailed my I'm nailed to the Monty Star. I keep calling them Monty's Pass. I keep doing it, but to Monty Star Mast, I'm a big fan of him altogether. I just am. I just think kind of that sort of trip, and then over 2.5 miles again as brilliant. I've been one of his biggest detractors of Gaelic Warrior. I have to stop doing it now. He was just so brilliant the last time out. But Dean, it'll be very hard now with the way he jumps right not to take him on again at Cheltenham. And I just think Hermes Allen for me would scream out as he'll be a bit of value on the day, because again, backing English horses at Cheltenham can be fruitful when it's right.
Can be.
Yeah.
Used to be the other way around. Donn, one from the top.
My one was Iroquois. I actually backed Iroquois for the Orange or the
Yeah.
Oh, he was so good
Top
first time
Ballyburn,
out.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, he was
Like
brilliant.
he was one of I think 12 horses that I wrote down at the end of Cheltenham last season to potentially back Ante-Post. And then when he did what he did at Warwick, I didn't believe that he was still a 14-1 shot after that, given all the positive. Anyway, look, that's a pity. He was the one. For another one, I thought In the Pocket ran well at Navan behind Fasilega, and he may be a 2 miler, but his pedigree is 2.5 miles, and he stayed on well at Naas the last day to win the Navan Novice Hurdle. Interestingly, at Naas, when there were no hurdles in the home straight, so he showed a lot of guts, I thought, that day. And going into Cheltenham last season, they were oscillating between the Ballymore and the Supreme, weren't they? And I think when the rains came, they decided on Supreme. Now, look, he showed pace to win the Top Novices Hurdle. That's a 2 mile race at Aintree, so you need speed to win that. But it might not have been as strong a race as the Supreme Novices. So I think that over fences, you can see him be running over 2 miles again, but he might be improved. He might improve again for going 2.5. But I think he's a really interesting horse, whichever way he goes.
Yeah, it would have to be on my list. We talked a lot about that race on the Racehour over the last couple of weeks since it took place behind Bastille Vega. That beginner's chase was a fascinating watch. Want to replay a few times. And In the Pocket certainly came out with the eye catcher stamp right all over it, and it was a fascinating run. Big horse for the rest of the season. I'm going to touch on the novice hurdlers. I mean, we're a little bit up in arms, of course. The Dream to Share's obviously got an issue, and is now a longer price in the market than it would have been. We've had Ballyburn obviously get beat at the weekend. You mentioned Jericho to Weapon 8 demo that was very impressive for the Henderson Young. We've been here before with a few of them. I think Jet Howard won the same race the year before, and didn't go to plan from there. Firefox has already been mentioned on here. I'm running off, of course, from the top of that market. There was a Triumph horse that I'm very excited about called Burdett Road, who's obviously at the top of the market for the Triumph, and they're still trying to work out who should be favourite for the Ballymore at the longer prices, the likes of Ballyburn still there, Firefox. Dermo, which ones of the novice hurdlers are top of your list at the moment?
Yeah, I don't, just because again I didn't come in under Royal Bonding, sorry, but I thought the winner deserves an awful lot of praise, Fire and Glory, for kind of what he did. He didn't look like he needed to go down and trip after his first run, and I thought enough went wrong that you would have given him a pass on the day, and I just thought that he battled and he got up really well. I don't think it's the strongest renewal possibly, but again, as Donn said, that could be completely proven as wrong. But a good winner though, very good winner. Firefox was excellent, and then there's just a few. This isn't one of the divisions that we can get too strong on yet. The likes of down memory lane is one who was really impressive last season. We haven't seen him yet. A Dream to Share is obviously out after Christmas now. He'll be looking to do what Ebazine, I think, is the last horse who had their debut after Christmas and went on to win a Supreme. So he's up against it, but he could well do it. He was excellent last season, but it's just kind of one of those kind of divisions overall where it's just best to kind of let it all work itself out just yet. We'll know an awful lot more over Christmas. I thought Daddy Longlegs on Thursday was just outstanding. The issue with some of the horses there is that he beat Irish Panther Dean by much further than Far and Glory did, and Irish Panther has a rough. I know that's a rough gauge. I don't like comparing 14.5 lengths to 9.5 lengths. Yeah. But Daddy Longlegs was brilliant, and the problem I'd have with kind of Ballyburn is that the very good Willie Mullins novices, they don't tend to get beaten like that. And now, I could be completely wrong, but they tend to win and then improve from there. Now, obviously, there would be glaring exceptions for that, but still, like Ebazine's maybe one of them. But overall, I thought Daddy Longlegs so far has been the one that's kind of maybe taken my breath away properly. I just thought he was outstanding. Just really strong. The race itself, obviously, that's obviously not, it might not be the strongest race in the world, but that doesn't matter. Just the nature and kind of what he showed you, how good he was. And then Far and Glory went on and won like he did. And for me, it just kind of showed that you know, Daddy Long, he's along the right form lines just to begin with. He'll have a lot more to do yet, but yeah, he to me now could scream, because a lot of Willie Mullins' better novice hurdlers come from left div like him. You know, they don't come from bumpers a lot of the time. They can come from absolutely nowhere, like Gayard did do. May Neil, you know, he came from nowhere really that season. Daddy Longlegs for me now is he's the best I've seen so far, I think.
Fair enough. Wasn't going to be on my list, but I'm going to add it to my list. Don, what do you make of the novice hurdlers so far?
Look, it's you know, every week that passes is something new to discuss. Obviously, it's fascinating.
Yep.
Really, I think Wilmot on the other side of the RAC. I think Wilmot is an interesting horse. He was on this side of the RAC. He won his only point to point for Colin Bowe. He actually beat Shannon Royale in that point to point, and Shannon Royale turned Tully Hill over at long odds on there the other day. So, and Wilmot then he went to Neil Mulholland. He won his bumper over there. There's 2 bumpers there, and then ran at Newbury and won as easy as he liked his first run for Nicky Henderson. He was a short price, and he's entered now in the listed novice hurdle at Sandown on Saturday that Constable won a couple of years ago. So I think he's an interesting horse over there, and you know, he was a high profile horse when he won his point to point. So he's worth keeping an eye on. And here, I think Mighty Bandit's an interesting juvenile. I thought he won his hurdle race really well at Punchestown there at the weekend on the Morgiana Hurdle John Durkin Chase weekend, and he clocked a faster time than State Man clocked in winning the Morgiana. Now State Man obviously wasn't, you know, didn't probably could have gone faster, but even so, for a juvenile hurdler on his racecourse debut, like he hadn't run under any code to clock that type of time. And yeah, I did clock the 2 races. There was no anomaly about it. Like it wasn't like State Man stood still for 3 seconds before they kicked off. They were same time over the path, same time over the first hurdle, and it was about more than a second and a half, nearly 2 seconds faster. And it kind of was in the middle part of the race that he gained that time and then maintained it all the way to the line. So it was a really interesting performance on the day. And then Jack Kennedy afterwards seemed to really think that he was a real player among the top juveniles. And just again trying to interpret what Jack said, it seems like he's not a horse who does a huge amount at home, but he said he kind of went, now I think he's a Triumph Hurdle type of horse, given the performance that he put in, and the implication being maybe more so than what he was showing at home. So I think he's an interesting juvenile hurdler.
Yeah, double figures around 12, so around that for the Triumph Hurdle is Mighty Bandit. I was a massive Burdett. I was blown away by that Burdett Road run, Don. I know it's early and he's short now, and you know, if you weren't involved, maybe not the time to get involved. Going to take a good one. Maybe Mighty Bandit is a good one, but if Burdett Road turns up in any sort of nick, he looks a Triumph Hurdle to me.
I was agree with all of that, Dean. He was so free in his first run up in Kempton. He did well to win, given how keen he was. He's a high class horse from the flat. It was the Copper Horse Handicap. He won at Royal Ascot, wasn't it? He's got a rating in the low hundreds, I think, on the flat. And then he settled way better at Cheltenham, and he picked up really well. And actually, at the time watching the race, I was thinking. I actually wrote this up in my notes. He stayed towards the far side as well, which is not where you want to be. But actually, as that meeting went on, unusually for Cheltenham at this time of year, it was where you wanted to be. You wanted to be on the far side, not like horses who came wide and came toward the near side. I ended up marking them up at the end of the weekend, because while they're normally advantaged by doing that, it looked like at that meeting they were disadvantaged by coming near side. So, and look, that's a small thing. He was seriously impressive in winning, and he's a high class horse. Yeah.
Fair. Okay. We are going to have a quick chat about a couple of the races that are coming up at the weekend, but we've got to do some senior horses. The Gold Cup picture changed massively over the last few weeks. Don, we've had some shock results out there. I got to go back to the Derkin, because fast or slow winning that. I don't know. Can we keep just writing him off, Don? I think he's in 5-1 for a Gold Cup. Can we keep just saying there's better?
I think, you know, he's earned his place at the top table a couple of times now. Like even his run in the Ultima was a really good run, and he's unlucky. He was unlucky at Cheltenham last year as well. He was only just beaten, then to just get beaten by Korak Rambler, who won the Grand National doing handsprings afterwards, and then to go to Punchestown. And look, of course, in the Punchestown Gold Cup, there was a sense that both Brave Man's Game and Galloping the Champ underperformed because they had hard races in the Gold Cup, but they can't both have underperformed by that much, and he beat them well in the end. And it was a super ride by JJ Slevin. He allowed them get away from him. Then he kind of arrested the deficit. He didn't let them get any more than 3 or 4 lengths away. And then, and to me, he won the race through stamina. He stayed on best over the last 2 fences, which is why for the John Durkan chase, I wasn't with him, because I thought 2.5 miles this time of year, it's going to be on the sharp side for him. I was kind of hoping he'd run well and then build it up and then improve again when he steps out and trips. So he did really well to win. And it kind of maybe showed a new dimension to us of him, that he was able to do that. And look, he's a likely race horse. Martin Brazel, top class trainer. We know that, and he's mapping out his campaign now. So, there was 6-1 available about him after the race, and I was kind of thinking, the 6-1 about him now is probably better value than the 14-1 was about it before the race, given that we know now what he's already done. So no, I think he's a massive player in the Gold Cup picture. Yeah.
Okay, Fast or Slow enters the picture as a massive player. I mean, I think you've always been a fan of Gerri Colombe, Don. There's nothing going wrong there. Maybe this one and Fast or Slow, where everything's going to plan.
Look, like Gerri Colombe, there's nothing not to like about him. He was one of the 12 horses that I wrote as a potential Ante-Post bet after Cheltenham last year. Then I thought he might get beaten at Aintree because Aintree wouldn't suit him. He was a 20-1 shot actually for the Gold Cup after his Brown Advisory run. And then he won at Aintree, and then he was a 10-1 shot, then an 8-1, and 6-1, and
Dermo said all of this as well. He felt exactly the same.
Really, yeah. No, it's frustrating, but I'm kind of resigned to the fact that I'm not going to be with him now for the Gold Cup, unless he gets beaten next time, and maybe he'll go to the King George, get beaten there, and the bookies will push him out again. But anyway, look, that aside, he's a phenomenal horse. He's a progressive horse. He's got some will to win. He's got some engine. He's unlucky not to be unbeaten under all codes, and in any race, and to do what he did at Down Royal when he didn't have the run of the race. He was carried out to his left by his stable companion. He had to switch inside. He landed flat-footed over the last, and to get up and beat Envoy Allen, who's a top-class horse and we know loves Down Royal and was given a super ride by Rachel Blackmore, for all of that to still get up and win. It was a big performance, and he's a horse who's going to be even better over further than that when the stamina test is greater. And yeah, look, there's nothing not to like about Gerri Colombe.
Okay, I mean, I'm picking on you here, Don, because I've spoken to Dermo about the Gold Cup a lot over the last few weeks. If you to nail your colours to one now, like, what would you do?
Fast or slow?
Yeah, Fast or Slow. Okay.
Yeah.
Current market, of course, Galloping de Champs beaten 3-1 now, 4-1. Gerri Colombe, Fast or Slow is around. I think there still might be a bit of sixes out there, but you can see a bit of 11-2, 16-1 bar. Brave Man's Gone or Brave Man's Game. Depends which way you want to call him now. It's obviously out the picture for a little while. Depends what they're going to do with that. Okay. I was going to throw open as well before we do move on to a couple of the bigger races at the weekend. Handicappers, Dermo. Anything handicapping wise for the season that you wanted to throw into the mix?
Just 2 straight off my head here. Comfort Zone will be the first one. I put him up in the Independent as one of my horses to follow. Haven't seen him yet. I hope that just means that they're targeting something over Christmas, or one of those dear effort. He's just on a hell of a mark. Really, really good mark last time we saw him for Leopardstown as well. He was quite good in the flat. He was unlucky maybe that day. Unlucky might be a funny way of putting that. But he ran very well anyway. Mm-hmm. He's won at Cheltenham. Probably definitely needs a win to get into a handicap at Cheltenham, but could be one of them maybe where you'd win under Mark Walsh somewhere and then stick a very good conditional on board maybe for something like a Coral Cup. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I just really think he's very, very well handicapped. And then the other one that I think is going to be handicapped, and there will be a very decent chasing, and will be like the way you're thinking. I was blown away with him last season. I think he's a real stamp of a chaser. I think first time out against Imagine, it wasn't that he was given, how to put this, it wasn't that he was like mark hunting that day, Mark Walsh. It was just kind of similar to in the pocket, just kind of have a good run first time. If he wins, he wins. Corbett's Cross was actually similar. Last time out, couldn't live with Gaelic Warrior. There's no shame in that. And he'll be one, I think, over fence as well later on the season. There is that novice handicap chase that has led on to the Galway Festival before as well for a few horses at the Punchestown Festival. He could be one for that, but he'd be one I'm quite excited about. But Comfort Zone is the one thing that I'm really looking forward to.
Fair enough. I mean, Don, you've mentioned a couple of times already on this podcast that there were 12 horses you wrote down straight after the Cheltenham Festival last season that you were going to back Ante-Post for this year. Any of them handicappers?
No, I don't think any of them are handicappers actually. Not
You're gonna have to dig further then into your notes.
It's hard enough to get handicap winners on the day at the Cheltenham Festival. That's why I'm trying to pick handicap winners at 12 months out. But that said, I like for handicappers now. I think the first three in the Coral Gold Cup, as we mentioned. I thought San Seagal at Ascot thought he was coming to win his race. He got the better of Boot Hill in a 2-mile handicap chase. He'd run too freely. First time he ran at Ascot, and he finished third. He actually kept on well to finish third. Then he came back to Ascot there 2 weeks ago, and David Noonan gave him a lovely ride, brought him among horses, delivered him to go and win his race at the last. He was a length up and he fell. So I think there's a 2-mile chase in him. I think he got a couple of pounds for that, which wasn't ideal, but when you don't finish your race, but he probably would have won. I think he was 1.5 in running at the time. And from the weekend, Solness, Joseph O'Brien's horse, I thought he was very good.
Yeah.
He was only his 7th chase. He'd run in some very good novice chases. He'd won twice. He'd been beaten by Hercule Lesoy twice. He'd been beaten by Saldier once. And then he ran in that 2.5-mile chase that, let's be clear about it, won at Cork. But it was just too far for him. He travelled well into the home straight and just tired from the second last, back over 2 miles on a furlong the last day. Conor Walsh, I don't know if you've spoken about him, but what a story. Like, he's the leading apprentice from last season, gone over jumps now. He had his first ride over jumps, over hurdles on the Galway Gallivanter at Cork, won on that. His first ride over fences was on Solness. He rode him like he'd been riding chases all his life, all his long life, but no, he was very good on him. But Solness won well. He stayed on well. He got £9 for it, so he's 147 now, but he's only 5. And there could be more to come from him. I was thinking maybe the Dan Moore chase back at Fairyhouse over the same course and distance in January. That might be the race for him. But I think any 2-mile handicap now that he goes for, I think there could be more to come from Solness. Yeah.
Okay, Saint Seagal flagged up, of course, Jane Williams and Solness, a winner at the Fairyhouse meeting there. The listed handicap chase, I think, could be one for the Dan Moore. All right, thanks very much for that. Look, we don't mind. We're just going to spend the next kind of 5 or 10 minutes spinning through what is coming up this weekend in true Racehour style. The Fighting Fifth is a talking point demo. Will we see Constitution Hill take on Shishkin?
Taking on Benson, you mean?
Benson, sorry, I should have said Benson. That's what I meant.
Yeah, you know, Shishkin in the without market could be interesting. But yeah, look,
he could win it with in market if he decides to.
It seems like they are running both of them, which is very interesting. I'd imagine it's a sweetener for Shishkin, but Constitution Hill should he'll win. You know,
if anyone needs a sweetener, it's Shishkin, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Or else maybe Dean, but fair.
That Fighting Fifth, it's going to be plenty of talking points in a minute about it, Don. Constitution Hill just obviously needs to get round based on everything that we know about it. But Shishkin prepping for a King George.
What do you do with Shishkin? You know, do you back him and think that he's overpriced because people don't think he'll start? I'd say he could be underbet before the race and overbet in running after the start because everyone's thinking, I'll wait till he starts.
Yep.
But like you couldn't back him before the race. What, you know, I was having a chat with some other lads there about what price is he to start? Like, is he,
what do they offer?
Two's on to start, 3's on to start. And then you need to get the double up that he starts at, let's say 2's on. And then given that he starts, that he wins the race. So what price is he then once he starts? I don't know. He's fascinating though. Like it's great. It's from as a neutral observer, I'm sure the connections and those close to him are tearing their hair out because to have some horse with that talent to start doing what he started to do, it must be seriously frustrating. But he's still a player if he kicks off and then runs his race because he's had a few flat spots in races, hasn't he, along the way that. You know, you think we're more mental flat spots than physical flat spots. Yeah,
different than Altior, isn't it? Altior used to hit a flat spot, physical flat spot, whilst Shishkin was, he just kind of mess around mid-race, really, wouldn't he?
I think he's still upset from when he almost got run over in a Supreme, isn't he? I know he still came and won.
That's a long time to be upset.
I know. I know. I always call him the extraterrestrial. I do think he's super special. I mean, obviously we know that, but it would be amazing if the only horse in training that could rattle Constitution Hill is Shifskin. Happens to be in the same yard. They decide to put it up against it in a fighting fifth. It is going to be a great talking point at the weekend if they both turn up. Let's hope they do. Don, you mentioned St. Seagal got a couple of pounds for not going on in the race, obviously coming unstuck. JPR1 got 11, I think. That's running at the weekend, and got £11, did it, for tipping up last time? It goes in the Henry Novices chase.
£11, yeah.
That's pretty stiff, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, well, he'd have won, and then I suppose from a handicapper's point of view, you can't. Well, you're not thinking about what prize money the connections didn't win. So from connections point of view, it's very frustrating because you've got nothing and you've got to accept the hike from the handicapper. That's all you're going home with.
Yeah.
But from a handicapper's point of view, what do you do? If he didn't give him what like even San Seagal or whatever, any horse that doesn't finish, if you don't give them what they deserve to get based on how you think they would have fared, and they run in a handicap next time, everybody knows they're well in. What, £8, £9, £10 well in, or £3 well in even. So they're going to, they're going to be a short price in a handicap, which is, I guess, not the purpose of handicaps. So, you can see why they do it, but at the same time, you can still feel connections paying for having to suffer the hike without getting the prize money.
Sure, I mean, it's forced their hand to go straight into this Grade 1 here against the likes of Colonel Harry ICR. Unexpected Party, I thought ran well enough in the Paddy Power behind Stage Star. Petit Tonnerre, Le Patron, and a massive outsider of Pozzo Emery, if that turns up. Good race, that Novice Demo.
Really good, yeah. JPR1 was very unlucky last time, obviously would have won. Yeah. But as a 7-4 shot, you'd be looking to take him on, 130 rated hurdler. Obviously, massive upsides, and he's probably a much better chaser, which he's shown already.
Looks that way.
I thought your old buddy Dean, Pete Tonnerre, I thought he ran a very interesting race last time. I thought he was kind of came late. Sandown could suit him very well. Just at 12-1 or so, I do like him. I don't like the front of the market. JPR1 is the best of them thus far, but I thought Petit Tonnerre would have learned an awful lot last time. And at 12-1 or so, I'm not a big fan of ICO. Colonel Harry's okay. Unexpected Party is what he is, but Petit Tonnerre at 12-1 in the market, I have backed it. And I just think that there's over hurdles, there wasn't a whole pile between him and JPR1, and I don't think by the end of the season that there will be a whole pile between them over fences either.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Petit Tonnerre. Backed it a couple of times last season and come unstuck. But I won yours as well one of those days, Red Risk Demo, which was a bit unfortunate for myself. That is a good race though, Don. Any early fancies for it?
To the team, no, it's interesting. JPR1, all right, as you say, going over or running in a Grade 1 race, because he's gone up to a mark of 145, so you can understand why. Like the Henry VIII chase, it's normally a race that it does attract some of the really good 2-mile novice chasers. Not sure if that's the case this year. But no, I haven't got into it yet. But yeah, it is an interesting market though. I'd be with Dermot and JPR1. You think is he a Grade 1 winner? Yeah, I'm not sure.
No, sure. One of them's got to win though. The fascinating story of
good point. Good point.
Yeah, I know. Something's going to be one. It's Tingle Creek weekend, of course, and John Bond is going to take on a few. Captain Guinness is almost on a revival. A horse I've always crabbed, and he does win sometimes, but he obviously got the job done the last day. I was going to talk about Boot Hill. He's been terrific this year, Don.
Yeah, he has. Like he wasn't that far behind John Bond last year. Well, it wasn't the Henry VIII chase that John Bond beat him last year. So there's your Henry VIII chase of last year. And he's been running those, like he won that handicap that San Seagal fell in the last day. I'm not sure he'd have beaten San Seagal if he'd have stood up, as we've already discussed. But he did beat him the time before that when he won at Ascot over the same course and distance. But look, you can understand why they're going into a Tingle Creek chase. It's like the 2-mile division. It's not a deep division, as we know. Like outside of John Bond and El Fabiolo, it's 16-1 bar, the two of them in the champion chase market, and that's Captain Guinness. And I guess I'm the opposite to you, Dean. I've always been a big Captain Guinness fan.
Yeah, I know.
And I've been with Henry de Bromhead when he's gone the 2.5 mile route. I was thinking maybe that'll be the key to him, but he didn't stay the 2.5 miles at Aintree last year, so the season before last. He's a pure 2-miler. I thought in the Fortria chase, he was as good as he's ever been. He travelled so well. His jumping, like he used to be a tearaway in his older days. I remember as a novice hurdler, he ran on the inside track at Punchestown, I think, and he ran away and still won. I think it was a Punchestown. Or sorry, he didn't win. He got beaten by Andy Dufresne, having run really freely. So look, he's a very talented horse. We know that he goes well at Sandown as well. And like he gave Riviere de Tel nearly a stone last time. Now, I know Desert Dynamo probably didn't run his race. He's a bit keen, as is his want. But Captain Guinness jumped well and travelled well, beat Riviere de Tel by 6 or 7 lengths, giving her nearly a stone. So that was a big performance for me. And you know, he's got ground to make up on John Bond from the running in the Celebration Chase when, in theory, John Bond was still a novice. I mean, he's not that much more experienced now than he was then. So he's got a little bit of ground to make up, but not a huge amount. And like, on all things being equal, you can't see him beating John Bond, but you can't see him beating Al Fabiolo either, probably. But he can run second to them in a lot of these big races if they run in them. And you never know if the ball hopped his way, as in if they were absent from one of them, there might be a Grade 1 race in him yet.
Yep. They've got to go and tackle him, as you say, third best in the markets for Champion Chase. El Fabiolo due out this weekend, I think, at Cork in a hilly way, which makes sense. Donn, sorry, Dan, no reason to take him on, is there?
No. I heard Johnny Deneen saying during the weekend, he's not wrong, that Captain Guinness should actually not go for this and should wait for Christmas, that he'd actually have a much easier Grade 1 to be targeting, because El Fabiolo probably won't go after the hilly way. He'll probably wait for the DRF, and he wouldn't have John Bond or El Fabiolo there. He'd probably end up with Blue Lord or somebody, which Captain Guinness wouldn't be 100 million miles by any stretch of imagination away from beating him. So it does seem a target maybe that for once Henry could be better off to actually avoid and wait for Christmas. But
I think they pitched up against Blue Lord last year, didn't they, at Leopardstown, and come unstuck. So yeah.
They did. But Captain Guinness, to me, last time I was quite impressed with him. And Blue Lord isn't a horse that you'd be terrified of. He just isn't.
That's fair. There is some good stuff at Cork, of course, over the weekend. I mentioned I think El Fabiolo was going to go in that hilly way, likes of what's in there against it? Moscato, what are yours, Don, from previous seasons? I know this. Riviere de Tel's there. Vanillier's in there. There's some good racing. Anything to pick out on that Cork card, Dermo?
Not particularly, no. The weekend overall.
We're very.
I'll make this point again. It's ridiculous that the Hilly Way and the Tingle Creek, we don't have enough 2 mile chases to have them both on the same weekend. I don't know why this couldn't be pushed back 2 weeks, and that or previous 2 weeks or something like that, because if something goes wrong now for Captain Guinness, wouldn't it be good if he had the option to go back a week or two later for a Hilly Way? It just seems crazy that we have them both in the same weekend. But anyway, no, Dean, look, it's a serious weekend altogether. We're kind of running out of time now.
No, that's fine.
I'll just rattle through the few that I was looking at. I was looking at Petit Tonnerre, obviously, and then in the Beecher Chase, I thought Ashdown Lad should take a bit of clipping there. Loves those fences, and that's just worth so much. My old buddy Pat's Fancy's out in Welsh National Trial, which has always been his lifetime aim. I've never heard a horse with that actually mentioned for him, not just us throwing him into it. He was genuinely mentioned the whole way through. He's definitely been aimed at that. He's been brilliant at Chepstow. Every time that he's ran there, he'll want the ground. He jumps fences so well. I mean, that day when he was beaten well by Braban's Game in that handicap, he was one of the only. He still jumped majestically the whole way around. So I'll be watching him very, very closely. And then in the 245 at Cork on Sunday, this is a handicap. It's absolutely not great at all, but I thought the 4-year-old Secret Rock for Tony Martin, it could be very interesting. Probably needs a few pounds to kind of start thinking about handicaps around Christmas time. So I thought that horse could be very interesting. One that I've just been kind of waiting for at a much, much lower level. A good weekend of racing, Dean, but not chock full of bets so far for me. But again, look, we'll wait for that.
Sure. Like, it is early, obviously. We'd normally be waffling away on a Thursday or Friday here to try and have a look at the weekend. We might do that still before the end of the week. Anything catch your eye over the weekend, Don? Because like that Beecher Chase is going to be great. And there's probably about 6 or 7 of mine in there that I could back, and I'm going to have to try and whittle that down. I haven't done so yet.
Yeah, look, it's a hell of a weekend, and like as we've discussed on many occasions, these weekends are brilliant. The whole way from probably Cheltenham's November meeting, or maybe the week before that, all the way up to Christmas. Like they're just deep weekends. And I take Dermot's point about a Hillyway and a Tingle Creek being on the same day, but it's such a busy weekend. Like I think the merging of the two Navan days into one weekend, that was brilliant. The merging of the John Durkin Chase Day and the Morgana Hurdle Day into one weekend at Punchestown, really great, and it worked really well. And as that settles into your psyche and into the calendar, you'll know exactly what the stepping stones are through. It takes a bit of getting used to the John Durkin Chase being run in late November as opposed to kind of nearly mid-December. So it means that the John Durkin horses can now run at Christmas, which is great. But no, I'm really looking forward to seeing El Fabiolo again. I'm down there at Cork Action Sunday, so I'm looking forward to seeing him. Mascada, yeah, she was a little bit disappointing last time at Clonmel, so she's going to have to bounce back. And I'd say to finish second or third behind Al Fabiola, that will be objective achieved on the day. I'm looking forward to seeing Croke Park step up and trip if Gordon Elliott runs him in that Grade 3 mile novices hurdle at Cork. He's got a few options in the race, Gordon has, but I thought Croke Park the last day when he won the Navan race, the Monksfield hurdle over 2.5, he only got stronger as the race went on, and he was no stronger than he was anywhere in the race than he was at the line. I was thinking he's a 3 mile hurdler, he's an Albert Bartlett horse potentially. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on, stepped up to 3 miles.
Very good. Yeah, 1:15, that one at the Grade 3 at Cork on Sunday. Okay, great weekend's racing. I guess the biggest talking point is going to be that fight fifth. If they both turn up Constitution Hill against Shishkin, it's not what I ever thought I'd say on the Racehour podcast. Let's be honest. Okay, I think we're done for this week on the Racehour, brought to you with our friends at Gambling.com. Been delighted to have had Donn McClean with us back once again on the Racehour. Donn, of course, has been here. You can catch Donn all different places. Donn McClean Racing, of course, on Gambling.com. A bit of Matchbookers out there, Racing TV, of course. He'll be busy out of the weekend. For now, have a great weekend. Enjoy the racing, and my thanks to everyone.